It's the JT Cho Show!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Say what?
We're all going to be talking, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're just going to be talking. That's all it is.
Yeah, we're just normal conversation between folks.
It's normal. It's normal talking. It gets a little interviewy here and there. Like, oh, yeah, explain what you mean by that. But at the most part, it's just normal talking.
Right, I got to make sure you don't see the back of the fan.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the JT Show. Special guest today, first in-person guest. Very honored to have him here. Franky Graybars. It's not Frank the Tank, but he's our Franky. Give a little about yourself, a little background, you know.
So I'm originally from the Philly area, suburbs of the city of Philadelphia. Was in the military just like old Jake here.
Yep.
And then we met actually in Clovis, New Mexico.
Cannon!
That's where I met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
She's a native Floridian. She's from Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
And so she wanted to move back to Florida when we both got out. But she wanted to be far enough away from her parents that they couldn't pop in and visit willy-nilly. But also that they were within a day's drive. So we settled in St. Petersburg, Florida, and that's where we're at now. That's where we're both at the moment.
Yeah, so essentially what happened is I did a little bit of sports gambling. I hit a little bit of a parlay, and then at the same time, Frank was talking about the beautiful winter weather here in Florida. It was currently, I think, 25, maybe 20 degrees at nighttime when we were all talking in our little group chat. And I was like, you know what, let's price some tickets and, cheap round trip later, and arrived in St. Petersburg Friday morning. And basically, the weather's been beautiful. St. Petersburg has been the environment's just been fantastic. Really good night scene if you're into that. First Friday, fantastic. Thanks for the experience.
No problem.
It was a lot to take in. There's a lot going on, but First Friday was definitely something I'm glad that I got to experience. So, kind of give which teams you like, what don't you like about your teams, and then we'll just start jumping into some talking because Frank here, he just finished a paper on what he explains is how to fix the college football playoff system, because the one that we have, a lot of people that watch college football religiously can agree 4 teams is not enough.
Yep.
Not enough.
Not at all.
Not at all. So you're Philly native, so...
Yep, so grew up watching the Birds, so the Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies. Funny enough, the Eagles Super Bowl in 2017 was actually the first Philly championship I actually got to watch for professional-wise. When the Phillies won in 2008, I was in basic training.
Right.
But yeah, so those are my major sports teams. When it comes to college, obviously Penn State football and Villanova basketball. However, since moving down here to St. Pete, Florida, I am currently in college. So I go to St. Petersburg College. And then within Florida, and probably, I think like most states, but I know specifically here in Florida, if you get your AA at a state college or a community college, you can automatically transfer over to a university.
Right.
So one of the Florida universities. So the local university is the University of South Florida. The Bulls. Go Bulls. Horns up. So I will...
Rip off of Texas Longhorns, but I'll allow it.
Hey. But I will be starting at USF next spring.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I did the same route originally before I went to Jackson and knocked out all this prereqs, and then went to Central, who lost the MAC championship today. Terrible game. Terrible fourth quarter, realistically. So, college football playoff system. There's 4 teams currently.
Yep.
How do we fix it, Franky?
So, this hot take,
okay,
is we expand it 14 to 14 teams.
All right.
Pardon me. Everybody else on the media, if you watch ESPN, if you watch FS1, they all say expansion of 8 teams. Joel Klatt, Fox Sports announcer, play-by-play guy, and also college football analyst, believes that 4 teams is perfect because he says if you expand it further, it actually ruins the integrity of the game itself. You know, college football is known for those upsets during the regular season.
It is.
And so he says if you expand it larger, you're kind of taking away from that. But I don't think you are. But he's also specifically said that the NCAA has been working towards expanding this. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And I don't think 8 teams is enough.
Okay.
I believe it should be 14. It should be the 10 conference champions get an automatic berth.
Power 5 and then...
Group of 5.
Yep.
And then you have the independents, where I would have the independent with the best record gets an automatic bid. And then that'd be 11 teams, and you would have 3 teams left over that the committee could select.
Now, with the independent team with the best record, is that the best record with the hardest strength of schedule, or is that the best overall record, period?
Best overall record, period.
All right. So, to me, not to just counter-argue your point, the only thing is you can have a Notre Dame team go 11-0 and roll through a bunch of nobodies because they're not playing Michigan until 2033. But you can have a team like that roll through a bunch of nobodies, and then you can have another independent team lose 1 game or 2 games to a top ranked Power 5 school. They could play Clemson, lose to Clemson, who might be ranked 4th overall at the time. And their one loss came against Clemson when the other independent team, kind of just played a bunch of scrubs. So that's sort of one of those things where, again, the committee would have to discuss. But, I mean, that's the only thing that I don't like about everything. We kind of talked about this before. This isn't like the first time I heard it because, I wanted to make those... I wanted to come in here with a little bit of background knowledge, but go ahead, continue.
So, in regards to that, obviously, the current format that we have, at least with the 4, and if we expand it to 8, the current format, that format and this current format is still punishing teams, right? So, in a sense, with the independents, you're not punishing them by not being in a conference.
Right.
You're saying, hey, just go out and... all you're trying to do is get the best record so you get an automatic berth. And It doesn't mean that they're automatically out because there's still 3 teams after that that the committee decides. But we all know that more than likely those 3 teams will go to a Power 5 school.
I personally hate independent schools. They don't play a championship, so they're automatically scapegoating with they could have a great record, but that championship game, that knocks a lot of teams out of the playoffs. You can have an undefeated great season, boom, bam, you're out, ma'am, because you lost your conference championship, especially with this 4-team playoff. So currently, I technically hate independent schools. I think they need to join a league or, go undefeated, like you said, unless they have no business being in any sort of playoff system, period.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, I guess, a fair way of those schools still having a chance to play and not punishing them by saying, well, you don't play in a conference, so we're not going to give you an automatic bid. Even though you're not playing a championship, we're not going to give you an automatic bid. You're going to have to compete for, now you would increase it to 4 teams that the committee decides, and you know that the committee is not going to pick an independent school. They're going to pick one of the other Power 5 schools that was right on the edge.
Do you make a requirement for that independent school to play so and so many games against Power 5 teams, or can they just keep building their schedule like they want to?
So, all in all, with the whole format that I had to kind of typed out, looked up, is that you would realistically, most conferences are playing 3 non-conference games.
Right.
So, realistically, you would be eliminating 1 non-conference game and just focusing on your conference. Obviously, with the independents, you don't have conferences.
Right.
So, you would say, hey... you got to actually try to schedule tough teams.
Yeah.
Now, realistically, that shouldn't matter at that point.
Okay.
Who you're scheduling, because we see it right now, and a point that you actually brought up earlier. I'll let you explain that. We were talking about this earlier today. Was that some of these Power 5 schools have an opportunity to schedule a tough group of 5 school.
Yeah.
But they choose not to do it because they're afraid that they could realistically come in and win, or they would lose.
It's one of those schools that they're challenging. They should statistically, on paper, be able to take care of that school, but they're nervous that this school that's not a Power 5 school and might not be top ranked, they're scared to go to a true road game into that university, or they're scared to play a team that has chances to upset them, so they just avoid those schools and they schedule UAF or something like that. They schedule really, really small schools that they can roll through, which is great for those programs too, because they split some of the money from profits and they get paid by big universities, sometimes up to millions of dollars to come up. And like Alabama plays a lot of smaller schools that come to Alabama, and yeah, they get rolled out of town, but their football program just made $1 million. But it's good for the smaller schools, but it's bad because, I mean, who does Alabama usually play during the season?
They play ITT Tech.
Trash.
Yeah.
They like to schedule neutral ground teams. And what we were saying earlier is, even though Ohio State has dominated the Big Ten, they've still had challenging games. And it's because the Big Ten plays true road games, and the horseshoe's hard to win on the road. The Big House, I know Michigan sucks, and we can't compete with Ohio State right now, but that arena at the Big House is hard to play at with 114,000 fans screaming in your face. Wisconsin has a beautiful stadium for fans screaming in your face. Penn State, when they white out, has one of the best student fan experiences because everyone's whited out and the Nittany Lions are wearing all white, so you truly feel like you are in enemy territory when you're playing those fields. And Alabama likes to play a lot of neutral ground because they don't want to deal with that, and they don't like to schedule schools that could potentially upset them and expose them for, I mean, what are they ranked, 14th or 12th or something like that? They finally got ranked honestly because of their strength of schedule.
Yep. And in a sense, by expanding to 14 teams in the college football playoff, you eliminate that. Mm-hmm. You eliminate the this idea that you have to play weaker schools for margins of victory and to pad your stats and pad your record to say, well, look, I'm undefeated. Because with 14 teams, you're forcing those colleges to focus on conference games. Yes. You're saying, hey, realistically, who cares what non-conference team you play? If you win your conference championship, you get an automatic berth.
Just like men's basketball.
Men's basketball.
NCAA.
The only time strength of schedule should come into play is it's going to be those 3 teams that the committee are going to select for at-large bids. But what I get irritated with is the metric of strength of schedule, is the metric of what is RPI and all that stuff. And I sit there and I go, why aren't we judging on the metric of wins and losses? Mm-hmm. Right? Who's got the best record? Was it 2 years ago? 3 years ago now? UCF? Only undefeated team. They're a group of 5. American Athletic Conference, get it. You know, they're in this conference. I don't like UCF because I'm going to be a bull. Screw UCF. I-4 corridor. Battle of the I-4. Or War of I-4. Whatever the hell it's called now. But UCF went undefeated. They had a legitimate claim to say, hey, we're the only undefeated team here in the country.
Yep.
I would say the American Athletic Conference is probably the top of the group of 5 right now.
Right.
Out of all the other group of 5 conferences. They'd beaten Memphis twice that year, who were ranked. They had beaten USF, who was ranked. You say, hey, we got 3 top 25 team wins. We're undefeated. We won our conference championship.
At least give us a look.
Yeah, just put us in.
Yeah.
If we get steamrolled by Georgia, we get steamrolled by Alabama, that's fine.
But
you gave me an opportunity.
Advertisements would rather see Alabama than
UCF.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And I think by even expanding to 8, you're still taking away from that. If you expand to 14, it's almost, I guess you would call it a December madness.
Okay.
It would be like the college basketball tournament, right? The Final Four and all that. But you would market it as such, the college football playoffs, and you're going to bring in those revenues. You know, you're going to bring in the ratings. You're going to bring in advertisers are going to be happy. Well, people say, well, we're going to lose those bowl games that are... does anyone really care about the Midas Touch Bowl? Let's be real here.
I mean, if Michigan's in it, I'm all about that Midas Touch Bowl.
Or the Pinstripe Bowl or something along
the
those...
Little Caesars Pizza Arena Bowl.
Yeah. And those bowls are... They're just bringing in revenue for the NCAA, but they're not important bowls.
Yeah.
But what you could do is each playoff game be a new bowl.
So, see, the important bowls in the current system are the ones played on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And then you've got your other bowl games that are played roughly around the same time, and a lot of smaller schools play the little 6-6 teams that are bowl eligible. Yeah, whatever.
Nobody watches it, you know.
And essentially, you could still keep those bowls in the playoff system. So when those teams potentially reach the Final Four or the Elite Eight, then, playing in the Tostitos Bowl at number 1 and number 8, so then that team can win a bowl game and still play for the national championship. And essentially, you could have the top-ranked school, you always have the top seed play the lowest seed. Are you re-ranking? Are you bracketing? Is it a set bracket, or do you re-rank power structure-wise?
So, I would say you turn it into almost like a selection Sunday for the college basketball for March Madness, right? And you'd say, okay, now we're gonna seed. So we got all our conference champions.
So you got how many teams?
10.
16?
So it'll be
14.
So it'll be 14. So they'll go, okay, we've got our 10 conference champions.
Yeah.
On selection Sunday or selection Saturday, whichever day you want to do it. You've got your 10 winners automatically in. Then you've got your independent who's automatically in. Then you get the committee chooses their 3, and then after they choose their 3, they reseed. And then if you want to throw in strength of schedule.
So you're talking 14 teams. The 2 number ones get a first round bye.
Yeah, the 1 and the 2 get a first round bye.
All right. So we're recording this on Sunday. We had a good day today. We drove around. You showed me St. Pete. This is Championship Saturday. It was yesterday. So the very first week of the college football playoffs would start next week.
Yeah.
And then it would continue to roll through December until
it would go. Let me look up the date that the actual championship is scheduled for right now. But with the college football playoff, I would have it. If you expanded to 14 teams, you would have it just extend 1 more week. The national championship would be played 1 week later than it is now.
So you're playing, you said drop a regular season game. You play 10 regular season games. You play 2 non-conference, 8 conference.
Yep.
And then you have 1 conference championship. So that's 11 games.
11 games.
So then if I'm not a first round bye team and I'm playing if I'm, a 6 or a 7 seed, I'm playing the very next week. So you've got to win, 3 or 4 games to make it to the championship. So now you're looking at 15 games to 16 games. You're looking at about 15 to 16 games for your season. Do you think these young athletes would be more hurt playing longer seasons to extend, because they're already playing 12, 13 games a season? And
I don't think it hurts them. How many, if these guys really want to get into the NFL, I know they're not being compensated, and that's why I'm also a proponent of paying college athletes. But that's a discussion for another time.
Another 9 hours.
Yeah. But if these guys want to, they're going to make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
They're going to have to get used to playing these games. So with with my extended format, if you are one of the 2 teams that end up playing in the national championship game,
Okay.
you will play a total of 16 games.
And then
If you don't make it to, obviously, if you don't make it, then it goes from there, right? So, okay, you play in this the semifinal, 15 games, so on and so forth.
Right.
So let's see what I had it as. Realistically, you're playing. There's a chance that you're only playing 1 more than you are now without a bowl, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So instead of playing, you got your.
So they're playing roughly 12 now, right?
Yeah. And then 13 if
13 in the bowl.
So
you're playing 3 more if you're playing in the national championship.
And then if you're the first and second seed,
you're
playing 1 less than that.
One
you're playing
less
15
because you get the bye.
So you think teams can handle a longer schedule, and not having a break before the bowl game's going to hurt? I personally hate the amount of time between Selection Sunday, which is today at noon. I hate the amount of time it takes to prepare for an opponent, because you're essentially taking a month off of football and you're preparing for one team for a month. I wish it was somehow. I like the games. I don't want them to change from New Year's Day because it's always a tradition, and then the next, the national championships right around that same time too. I just hate having 3 weeks off of college football and then coming back. And there's players that during those 3 weeks they say, this last game's not really worth my time playing in the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl or something like that.
And then there's the risk of they're a senior getting ready to commit to going into the draft.
So they sit out. It's totally their choice, and I respect it. It just stinks that, instead of representing your school, you would rather just represent yourself. But that's your choice. Personally, I wouldn't make it, but personally, I was never fit enough to be a college athlete. So the only thing that I have to bring to the table is my opinion and not my experience.
And what bothers me too is realistically, and I mean, you played high school sports, right?
Yeah.
I played high school sports.
2-7. That was our record.
Okay. I was a bench warmer for
you
our
played ass
back for our baseball team, right?
Coach, can I go in? Get your ass back.
Yeah. I had a clipboard and I just marked the stats down.
Hey, I played
JV.
I played JV as a junior. No shame.
Yeah, no shame. And I quit my senior year. But you're competitive, right?
Yeah.
You want to get out there and compete. And so when I say, I wanted to preface what I'm about to say with that statement, right? What I'm saying is that these athletes, these college football players, are going out and they are playing for something, right? They're playing for the love of the game. They're playing to compete. They're playing for a chance to make it into the NFL.
Right.
But they're not playing for a chance to play in a national championship and win a championship if they don't fall into the Power 5.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't belong to a Power 5 school.
Right.
And even then, if they're playing in a Power 5 conference and they're not one of those top tier teams within the Power 5 conference, they're likely not to have a chance either.
I think it was Western Michigan, a MAC school. They had, essentially, it might have been an undefeated season, if not a one-loss season. They won the MAC championship outright, and I think the highest they were ranked was maybe, I think they were 15 or above. They were 15 or below, but you go undefeated in the MAC. I know the MAC's not a Power 5, but MAC schools can still, on any given Saturday, not Sunday, but they can compete with these Big Ten schools, and sometimes they can upset them. One of the best upsets I've still seen to this day was Central Michigan versus Michigan State Spartans in East Lansing. And, I'm a CMU alum. We go down there. The fans at MSU are just disrespecting us every single score, and I'm eating it because we're losing. And we come down. Dan Lefevre's playing phenomenally. We kick a field goal. I believe it was missed. Some guy turns around who's just been ragging on me for 4 quarters of football, turns around and shoves his finger right in my face, and I just said, there's a flag on the field. We move up, we make the field goal. Well, now MSU's going, there's still time on the clock. We did this crazy squib kick, hits a player right in the helmet, CMU recovers the ball, and my finger went right in his face. Because we were kind of talking about it earlier. I'm not a person who likes to gloat. I'm very humble because I've had teams that suck. The Red Wings suck. The Tigers suck. But at one point, the Tigers won the 2 World Series. At one point, the Red Wings were in the playoffs for 26 years. Now they suck. So I understand what it's like to root for a team that sucks, okay? So I don't want, if I don't know you, or if we're just not horsing around, I don't want, like last night in St. Pete, I was just wearing my Green Bay hoodie, and I was walking past somebody. He was like, "Oh, screw Green Bay," and I was like, "Oh yeah, excuse me, may I have your team, please?" And he said, "Chicago." I said, "Oh, have Mitch Trubisky. Congratulations, I'm happy for you, and I'll give you that." But you gave me the disrespect first. We just got majorly off topic, but that's what happens with us. So we talked about 15 to 16 games. These players who don't go to a Power 5 school,
They should handle it.
Yeah, they're not preparing to win a national championship because they're not going to a Power 5 school.
Yeah, there's no opportunity or a chance for them at the moment to even compete. You look at, so something is to be said for, let's say Memphis today, right?
Right.
Memphis beat Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Memphis is ranked 17th. They beat 20th ranked Cincinnati in the American Athletic Conference Championship. They're 12-1.
Yeah.
They should have an opportunity to potentially play for a college football playoff. They're not. They're not going to. Another one-loss team is going to get in there. Another one-loss conference champion is going to get in there. But let's just say, I mean, it's hard to play in hypotheticals because, especially within sports, because you could say, well, what if this happened? The committee may punish a team for losing a game, you know.
We don't know how they're going to vote. Losses, and they also get punished for how they lost.
Yep.
If you lose with a last second field goal, that gets you more points than if you get blown out.
And so by playing in hypotheticals, you don't know what the committee's going to do, right? And so that is another thing that I covered in my paper that I wrote.
Only the advertisers know what the committee's going to do.
Yep. and I'm also positive that ESPN, Kirk Herbstreit, and all those guys, they know. They already know the rankings. They say on TV, we're just finding out these rankings before you guys. With you guys, no, you probably already know.
Yeah, unless you've got the world's fastest graphic builder, like you've got to. It's probably just like a sealed envelope. Like, if you leak this, you're fired.
Yeah,
one of those things.
But I'm gonna play a hypothetical though.
Okay.
And the hypothetical is so Clemson did win today against Virginia.
Hypothetically.
But hypothetically, Clemson loses.
Okay.
Virginia wins.
Yes.
Right? Virginia goes to, at that point, what, 10-4? They were 9-3, I think. Yeah, 9-3. So they go to 10-3.
Yeah.
They're not competing for a college football playoff.
No.
Spot. But then Clemson now becomes a one-loss team. And on top of that...
No, Clemson already lost this year.
They were undefeated.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You're right.
So they become a one-loss team.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they're not a conference champion.
Right.
Do they get into the college football playoff?
Well, yes.
Yes, they would be put into the college football playoff.
And I completely disagree. I know you're going off a hypothetical, but I completely disagree with that decision.
And so you would take a team like, well, Georgia's automatically out, right? Because they're 2 losses.
Georgia was always a scapegoat, and I'll explain why.
And so the committee isn't transparent, but we can all kind of assume a 2-loss team's not going to get in, right? Alabama's not going to get in.
Well, unless Alabama's a 2-loss football team, a 2-loss team is not going to get in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Alabama was 2 losses and still won the SEC, they would probably get in.
Yeah, 100%.
But a Penn State who lost 2 games and won the Big Ten championship is not going to get in.
Because they love Bama.
Yep.
Love them.
And so Georgia being a 2-loss team automatically out, right? So you would have, if that scenario, that hypothetical was true, you would have Ohio State number 1.
Yep.
Or Ohio State, LSU, flip-flop, whichever one, right? But they're both undefeated, won their conference championship, they're automatically in.
Right.
Your third team would be, your next 2 teams are coming down to...
I'm going to kick off my shoes.
Your next 2 teams would fall into 1-loss schools.
Mm-hmm.
That would put Oregon as a conference champion with 1 loss. That would put Oklahoma as a conference champion with 1 loss.
Okay.
That would put Clemson as a conference champion with 1 loss. There's your Power 5, right there.
Yep.
So in the current 4-team playoff, we know that they have an opportunity to get in.
Yes.
More than likely, they're gonna pick from one of these 3 teams. Committee, as known, the committee doesn't really like the Pac-12 other than when Washington went on their run.
And when Oregon was hot a long time ago.
So Oregon would be tough.
Oregon's not gonna make it this year.
But so the ultimately, I'm saying when you throw a Clemson in, right? So let's just say Oklahoma automatically goes in as a Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
they
upsetted Baylor when
they have
Baylor
an ex-Alabama quarterback.
that too. But they had, came back from whatever that point difference was.
28-3.
28-3 against Baylor.
The Patriots.
Falcons.
They pulled the Patriots.
Yeah, never forget.
Never forget. I'll tell you real quick, funny story. That's the first Super Bowl that I've missed in. How old am I? So
29.
Yeah. So excluding like pre-5. So my first Super Bowl I ever remember watching. This is why I like the Packers. Was when Brett Favre beat the Patriots. All right, and then that's why I still hate John Elway. Because they went back and then they lost to the Broncos. So the Super Bowl is like a tradition. I don't care who's in it. It's food, football, and fun, okay? It's fun to have people over at your house and all that jazz. And I love Super Bowl Sunday. But I just got to my deployment. The time difference was crazy, and I was sleeping for my next night of work. So I said, I'm going to wake up at halftime, and I'm going to check the score, and I'm going to go back to bed if it's not close. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, I can't believe the Patriots can't keep up with this explosive Atlanta offense. And I went right back to bed. I woke up for work the next day and I was like, blah, and I was like, I could not believe. We actually ended up watching it on our first off day, but essentially that's the first Super Bowl that I've missed, and they came back from a 28-3 deficit. But yeah, so Oklahoma came back against Baylor and then
beats Baylor and then faces Baylor off in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah,
and then
it was
wins.
A good game.
So Oklahoma, in this hypothetical, Oklahoma gets thrown into the college football playoffs. Now we need one, right? There's one left.
Right.
So I know I counted Oregon out, but then the committee would look and they would say, okay, we've got a one-loss Oregon Pac-12 champion.
Right.
We've got a one-loss Clemson team that are not a conference champion.
You've got a 2-loss Georgia, but they're out.
You got a two-loss Georgia that's not a conference champion. You've got a 2-loss Alabama that's not a conference champion. You got a 2-loss Utah team that's not a conference champion.
And then you've got a team that's lost to the number one team twice, Wisconsin.
But they're a 2-loss non-conference champion.
But to the number one team in the nation.
True, but they're still a 2-loss team. And so I would say in this 4-team format, the committee is going to say, hey, you're 2 losses, you're done.
Okay.
Right? You're out. So now, why can't the committee look at all of the one-loss conference champions at that point, right? Money. I mean, it is money. There's no denying it. But you could say, well, they go, well, Clemson, defending national champion, we kind of got to put them in. And you go, no, but they're not a conference champion.
Trevor Lawrence is the future. He is.
He plays in a weak schedule. If we're gonna use the argument for, I have a quote.
While I was looking at this quote, I'd like to point out Clemson does have the weakest schedule. They've played 2 ranked opponents, two ranked top 25 opponents. 2 top-ranked opponents in the 25 system that we have right now. They beat, I think it was a 15th ranked Warford, and I didn't even know who that school was.
They almost lost to North Carolina State?
Yeah, they almost lost to a non-ranked
it NC State?
I think it was, but they played Warford, who was ranked 15th at one point, and then today they beat number 23rd ranked Virginia. So you're telling me that your entire schedule of college football, and you've only played 2 teams that are even ranked, and your best ranked team that you played is 15th. That's more of a hot garbage schedule than Alabama. Clemson's conference is terrible. I understand that, and you can't help it. But that is the weakest thing I've seen. I can't even give you an example of how weak that is.
And so in that hypothetical, I would want the committee to look at all conference champions. Obviously, Ohio State, LSU would be put in, right? So then we would
in this hypothetical,
right? They're undefeated, automatically in,
right?
So this hypothetical. Let's remind everyone the hypothetical is that Clemson lost to Virginia.
Word of the day: hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
If Pee Wee Herman here, he'd be like, ah!
Hypothetical. If didn't Pee Wee Herman get arrested for touching himself
in a movie theater?
Hypothetically.
Allegedly. Not hypothetically. Allegedly. Hey, I think he did it though. I don't know.
Was it those brothers? Was it a llama? those I'm really bad with references.
Yeah.
I love Letterkenny, but
Oh, yeah, allegedly. You're talking about the ginger.
yeah, the ginger.
The ginger, because it takes two allegedly to screw a llama. One's got to hold it down, and one's got to perform the act.
It's an injured llama.
Yeah, a sick... no, it's not a llama. It's a ostrich.
Ostrich.
Okay, yeah, it's an... So, great reference. I love the episode where they explain how fast an ostrich can run, but it was allegedly a sick ostrich. So,
which makes it 10 times
we got
worse.
allegedly, and then we've got hypothetically. But in our hypothetical
in
situation,
the hypothetical, the committee would have an issue, right? And they would say, oh, well, we've got 2 undefeated teams. They're automatically in. And they're conference champions on top of that. But now we got to put in 1 loss conference champions. And so they would throw in Oklahoma. And this is the problem with the transparency of the selection committee. We don't know what they do, so a lot of people play in the hypotheticals. When you listen to ESPN, FS1, CBS Sports, all of them, everyone plays in these hypotheticals, right? Because they don't know what the committee's going to do.
Nope. They play on a lot of speculation.
And there's a problem with that when there is that lack of transparency within the selection committee. However, that's a point for a little bit later. But I would argue you take a Memphis team. Yeah, they play in the American Athletic Conference, but they're a 1-loss team. They should be in the conversation in the hypothetical. Appalachian State. Yes, they play in a garbage conference, but because they upset Michigan the one year.
Yep.
But they're a 1-loss team.
Yeah.
Right? And they should be in the conversation, but that's the problem. They're not. Now...
And that's why I love college basketball playoff systems the most, because of Cinderella stories. And with the current format that we have, you will never get a Cinderella. Oh, number 4 ranked upset number 1. What a Cinderella. No.
What was it? 2 years ago, Loyola Chicago, they ultimately lost to Michigan in the Final Four.
It was great. I was there. But
Loyola Chicago went on that Cinderella run.
Yeah, and you get those Cinderella stories because they were ranked, 11th? They were ranked...
Loyola Chicago wasn't ranked, I don't believe.
No, in the seating of the...
Oh, yeah, they were like...
They were 10 or above. And you don't get that chance for college football because they're more concerned about, let's just throw another Power 5 school in there because that's what people want to see. It's not a true college football playoff format because it's a Power 5 playoff format with the potential of an independent league every now and then.
Yeah, and that's only going to be a Notre Dame.
And
that's only if Notre Dame performs well.
And essentially, you were talking about that UCF, right? How they went undefeated, and they didn't even get mentioned. For programs to even have a shot at competing at that level, they've got to do what other teams don't. Alabama can have 2 1-loss seasons in a row, and UCF can go undefeated for 2 seasons, and they're still not getting the same respect because people automatically go right back to strength of schedule.
Yep. And so we've watched various scenarios since this current CFB format was put in place in was 2016.
Right.
Not 2016.
Was it 2015?
2014.
2014.
So in 2014, they implemented the CFP, and we've had different scenarios where you had a 2-loss Penn State team that were conference champions, won the Big Ten, get kind of kept out of the college football playoff for a 1-loss Ohio State team.
Right.
What? Yeah, they were 1-loss, right? Did they? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you sat there, and I get it, the 2-loss, the 1-loss, but Ohio State wasn't a conference champion. Then the following year, Ohio State won the conference championship, but then was snubbed for, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to have to look this up, but I'm almost positive that Ohio State then that following year was snubbed for a non-conference Alabama.
Alabama was ranked 4th.
Alabama didn't make the conference championship.
But they still snuck into the playoffs.
And they still snuck into the playoffs, and Ohio State was up in arms about it, right?
That was a big controversy that year.
And so...
And I hate Ohio State, and I'm never, ever, 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 gonna root for them. But that sucks for the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. And I'll stick by the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is...
Best conference, best
road games, hardest schedules because of the road games. The SEC, oh yeah, we've got this many national championships. Yeah, because you scapegoat your way into the college football playoffs.
And so... yes, there was controversies that year, and there was semi-controversy the year before that with Penn State. But I will give the committee props on the fact that they did the same thing.
Right.
That one year they let in a team that wasn't a champion.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following year they let a team in that wasn't a champion. And so what I want to see this year is the same thing. But I want it to be a little bit different. And I've got a quote here from 2018.
Okay. That's last year.
It was an article put out in Sports Illustrated.
Good source.
The college football playoff executive director, Bill Hancock, defended the committee's decision to keep UCF out of the college football playoff because of this. Now, let's remind everyone again. That year, the UCF went undefeated, beat 3 ranked teams, and won their conference championship.
Yep. Even had a parade when they won the national championship.
Yeah, when they beat Auburn in a Year 6 bowl.
Yeah.
But
and everybody everybody in the entire college football committee goes, I hope Auburn smashes so we can just silence.
Yep. And it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
So the selection committee, the CFP executive director Bill Hancock said this: the selection committee respected UCF. After all, they're the group that put the Knights into the Peach Bowl. To qualify for the playoff, teams need to play tough schedules against good teams. That is the way for all teams to stand out and be ranked high by the committee. So if you were going to snub an undefeated, and remind you again, I'm going to be going to USF next year, so I do not like UCF.
So you're not being biased.
Yeah, I hate UCF. Yes, I'm bandwagon now, but hey, guess what? It's going to be my alma mater. So,
hey, that's not bandwagoning.
But if you're going to keep out an undefeated UCF conference champion for that reason, and that's the reason they say, then you need to keep Clemson out this year.
Yeah, they're horrible. Their schedule is horrible.
Horrible. You need to keep them out. I'd be okay with Oregon, Oklahoma. Hell, I would actually be okay with a 2-loss Georgia getting in over Clemson.
Clemson's schedule is weaker than the second single released by Lil Nas. And you're thinking, what song's that? I have no idea. That's how weak it is. It's not... Like I said, they beat a 15th ranked team. Warford. I'm going to have to do some research on that. No idea. Wolford, they might be like a dog or something for their...
I think so, yeah.
A mascot. And they beat 23 Virginia.
We're sorry if you go to Wolford.
Yeah, I mean, like, nobody really knows. Fire Up Chips, Chippewas, ooh, ah, you wish you were a Chippewa.
Wolford Terriers.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, today, during the MAC championship, shout out to Ohio.
Wolford plays in the FCS.
Yeah, and they were 15th when they played Clemson this year. But so CMU played Miami of Ohio, and your wife was out, and she goes, "Why do they have to have Ohio? Why do they have to have Ohio next to Miami?" And I said, "Because like most Americans who don't watch football, if you just generally tune in this game, they're like, oh, Miami's playing Central Michigan in the MAC Bowl, but no, it's like there's a St. Louis, Michigan, okay."
There's a Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yeah, the world's screwy, okay? So you're going to get teams that are from towns that sound like big name teams, so you have to put that parentheses in. So I apologize to Warford. I just don't know about you. That's like, hey, Frank, I want you to name 2 prominent NFL players from Miami of Ohio.
Ben Roethlisberger and Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know.
All right, Charlie Batch, I believe. Well, he wasn't prominent, but he was an NFL player. I'm glad you got Ben Roethlisberger, but unless you're extensive in football, a lot of people couldn't name like Antonio Brown, the number 1 overall draft pick from Central Michigan. Dan Lefebvre played Canadian football. Snead had 1 year. There have been players that come from MAC schools that are phenomenal, and I love to see that because. Who did Megatron? He played for Georgia Tech.
Oh, Calvin Johnson? Let's look it up.
Yeah, Calvin Johnson played, I believe, for Georgia Tech, which Georgia Tech's a little bit bigger than, I would say, Central Michigan.
Yeah, it's an ACC school.
Yeah. So, it's...
Georgia Tech,
So I like to see players get the opportunity that they never got to because of our college football system. And that also kind of makes you go back and say, wow, this kind of talent came from this program. You know, would they have a bad year? Did they? You kind of go back and you look into it and you say, you know, why didn't this team that had such a great offense and they had these great scores, they got snubbed because, was it the record? Was it because a smaller conference?
It's at the end of the day, I truly believe it's going to be ratings, advertisements. You can't really hype up. I mean, I feel like you can. But
Yeah.
I feel like to a lot of people, you can't really hype up a game. Let's say the national championship comes down to Memphis versus Boise State.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really hype that game up on television.
No.
You know, and say, this week we've got the national championship game between Boise State and Memphis.
Yeah,
you know, everyone's going to be like, the fuck?
That's why I believe, yeah, we can swear. Okay. It's fine.
The fuck?
Yeah, no, I mean, I try to keep it, I'm not trying to F-bomb every other word, like, you know, this and that. But, I mean, when it's appropriate, fucking drop it. But what I'm saying is, when you have teams like that where you can potentially have Boise play Memphis, I think that's why you have to realign and always have the top seed play the lowest seed. So, for example, let's just use a standard 16 fantasy football playoff. This is what I'm already out of the playoffs, but the number 1 and 2 seeds have byes. So the 3 plays the 6th and the 5th plays the 4th. Okay? Now, the number 1 seed will never see the 3rd seed in their first round of the playoffs. The 3rd seed will automatically play either the 5th seed or the 6th seed, depending on who wins. Now, if the 4th seed wins, the 4th seed's going to play the 5th seed, but it'll never see the 6th seed. So what I'm saying is, so you have your number 1 and 2 schools. So you have 1 and 2. They get their byes. They're going to play now the lowest ranked whoever wins. So if the 6th seed wins against the 3rd seed, they're going to be playing the 3rd seed. So the number 1 plays the number 6, and then whatever else happens on the other side of the bracket. So you're still not throwing it away to where, oh, look at this crazy playoff system where all 5 big Power 5 schools got upset on the first weekend by smaller schools. It's still giving the smaller schools a chance to do their Cinderella stories. And I that's what I would add to the playoffs. I would always realign to have the top seed play the lowest seed because I
agree with that.
They earn the right to be number 1, except if you're Alabama. I'm going to hate on Alabama all the time. Nick Saban, we schedule people, no one wants to play us. No, you're just scared of getting upset and being out of the playoffs like you are this year.
You know, what was his quote? I'm going to have to look it up. I got really pissed this year. Look, there's no denying that Nick Saban is
he's
the
best.
He's a great
he's
college
the greatest
football
college
comeback.
football coach to ever exist. I hate him.
There's no
but you gotta
denying
respect
that.
him.
But this idea when he said after beating New Mexico State,
Yeah.
you know, oh, you know, we want to schedule those teams, and they're not doing it.
Yeah.
BS.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Boise State in the BCS era that was dominating?
Your athletic director and you have so much pull on your schedule that I guarantee they're getting calls. Hey, I want you to play this out of conference team. That's
If you take a team like, even if you take a smaller Power 5 school, right? So you take a Maryland, right? Maryland's not that good.
no.
They're trash.
Yeah.
But you take a Maryland, and Maryland goes, I want to face, I want to play Alabama, and Alabama's cool with it. Yeah. Maryland knows that they don't get many primetime games.
No.
They're about to have a primetime game, or at least a game that's going to get watched.
It's going to be on the SEC network.
So they're gonna want to play that game.
Yeah.
But the problem with Alabama is, I'm gonna have to go back and look up some more articles, do a little bit more research. But I'm almost positive that during the BCS era, when Boise State went on their little run,
Smurfed her.
they tried to schedule bigger schools. I think Oregon was the only team that played them. Mm-hmm. But I want to say they tried to play those bigger Power 5 schools to get that recognition, right? To get
they
to
were
get that
rolling through their conference.
Oh, they were dominating,
and they were still terribly ranked because they never played
anybody.
Yeah.
And obviously the BCS era had their own issues, which I did cover semi extensively in the paper that I wrote.
Right.
Because I kind of set it up for comparison between the BCS and the CFP, and for what I found within the CFP is that they actually rolled a bunch of the BCS stuff over, or some of the stuff that they did in the BCS. They implemented it into the CFP, so they kind of rolled it back over. But that's besides the point. Boise State tried to schedule those tougher teams, said, hey, we want at least a signature win. Possibly we could get a signature win from a big Power 5 school. And that puts a claim for us to compete in the national championship game. But those bigger schools didn't want to do it because they knew what Boise State was doing.
They have the potential momentum.
To lose. They're gonna, there's a possibility they can lose.
They have the upset ability. There are teams. One of the greatest state in the United States that has two teams that have some of the greatest upset potentials is Iowa. Iowa and Iowa State, year after year, always knock off a top 10 school.
I wouldn't want to go to play at, Kinnick Stadium in Iowa.
Yeah.
Not only do you feel bad beating them because the children's hospital's right there, and they do that really cool ceremony.
Yeah.
Every home team game, they all turn with their
They
their
put
lights.
it on TV. It touches my heart if it's still there. And my black hole, I'm like, stop it.
But when they're doing that thing for the kids in the children's hospital, you go, man, one, that's just a good program.
Yeah. They designed
awesome fan base.
They designed everything perfectly.
But you feel bad when you go in there and beat Iowa because you're like, damn, man, those kids were really looking forward to seeing their team win, and it didn't happen. You kind of feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You just ruined a kid with cancer's night. You're an asshole.
Yeah.
But it's still a really hard stadium to go into and win.
Right.
And you're not going to see a team like an Alabama. Real quick, let me apologize if you hear a lot of breathing from me. I am slightly overweight, but that's not why.
Slightly.
I am getting over a small cold that I had. Yes, you can get colds in Florida.
But it doesn't get cold in Florida. No.
It does occasionally.
60s.
60s. Yeah, today we were out it was high 70s, almost 80s, and then besides the point.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see a team like an Alabama. You're not going to see a team like Georgia go into Iowa.
You're gonna see them bait Iowa. You're gonna say, come play us
here.
Yeah, or neutral.
Or neutral field.
Yeah.
We'll meet somewhere and then we'll name it something cool.
And that's one of my favorite things about Iowa being in the Big Ten is they have that children's hospital overlooking their games because the fans waving at them, the players on the field playing for them, it's giving them those touches of hope, and it's giving them that notice that says, hey, I don't know you at all. I know nothing about you. But as a fan basis, we're here to say we love you, we support you, and we pray for you, essentially. And that's just probably one of the most touching, for stadium-wise. I mean, maybe one day I'll call you and say, hey, let's talk top 10 college football stadiums, okay? Iowa's got to be on that list because of what they've done for those kids, and it's a beautiful thing.
And that the whole beer thing that happened earlier on in the season, the guy with the Venmo, give me, this is my Venmo, whatever, give me some money for drinks, and then he took all the money that
it was Bush,
okay.
Or was it Bush? I think it was Bush.
It was Bush.
Yeah.
He took all the money that everybody gave him, and he donated. Wasn't it against Iowa State, right? It was a rival school.
So he was an Iowa State fan. I might be wrong.
Iowa State, yeah. Right.
Yeah, and so they were playing Iowa. He had held up a sign with his Venmo on it, and it said, I think it was out of Bush. It might have been out of Natty. But he was like, I'm out of my beer. Please give me Venmo. And then he checked his phone. He had $30,000. So, Scott Van Pelt did a great piece on it. He said, this guy's mom has to be proud, but she has to, okay? And he takes that money, he says, I'm going to donate this, and I believe Venmo matched, and there was another company that matched the contributions. So he ended up raising almost $150,000, if not more,
to the Children's Hospital.
Yeah,
and then he went on and they distanced himself from him because cancel culture got a hold of some old tweets.
Yeah, and that's awful. And right now the cancel culture, which here's my reasoning why. Michael Vick came back 2 years after he went to jail. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was the cancel culture then? There wasn't one.
Well, they were. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were people
protesting.
screaming. There were people screaming for him to be gone.
Right, but the amount of people whose voices, I mean, we're doing the same. We're not cancel culture, but anybody can put anything online for anybody to listen to, and you get enough people steamrolling, and some of the people might not even care anymore. But then they say, "Oh, they're mad about it. I want to be mad about it too. I want to argue for this." And so they're doing the same thing right now to Michael Vick, but they're just, I mean, like Michael Vick's past way worse. I just read an article actually of how when he got out, he once, and it sounds weird, but he tried to be, he got in touch with the right people to become an advocate, saying, I understand I made my mistake. Look at my background. I'm not trying to blame everything on other people, but because of the way I was raised, I didn't realize how terrible these decisions that I was doing. And me personally, the way I was raised, it's hard for me to be mad at my dogs. My dog gets home, tears up furniture, okay, because she's got a hold of a pillow. I'm just like, I just want to choke you, but you're turning over and wanting me to pet your belly, and gosh, it just makes me so angry.
And the eyes, and
yeah, but I mean, okay. But besides the point, it's not like he got out and just ignored it and pretended like it never existed. He's actually made efforts to try to correct the mistake, because now you're saying if you have one mistake in your entire career, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you're done.
And I heard, so other than sports, right, yeah. I'm also really big into politics.
Yeah. Politics with Franky. Get ready for the next 9 hours.
No, I'm going to try to avoid my opinions on, long story, but we'll talk about impeachment and stuff at another time. I'm actually trying to create a podcast, so if you want to tune in there and listen to my impeachment views.
And when he finally gets it up, I'll put a link,
Hell yeah, you're the man.
Yeah. I mean, I have maybe 2 followers and you're one of them.
Woo!
So, I mean, you can just follow yourself.
So I do want to finish what I was about to say real quick, but I do want to say to the people that do follow and watch Taylor, listen to and watch Taylor's podcast, I know everyone has a reason for doing it. I know you're going out and trying to kill it and get to where you want to be in your life.
Yeah.
I'm doing it, one, to help you because I want you to succeed.
Yeah.
But also, we served together. We spent a lot of time together one-on-one, and then just him living in Michigan, me living down here in Florida. When I get excited.
Yeah.
I get excited when I see my notification bell, my phone go off, and I look and it's like Jake Taylor uploaded a new video. I'm like, hell fucking yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because I will sit down and I'll watch it, and it actually, I'll tell my wife, hey, not right now, don't bother me. This hour I'm dedicating to watching this podcast because it brings me back to
those memories, to
those memories of Clovis and actually
the conversations,
and it's awesome.
At one point, I remember you called me over and you said, "Hey, let's just hang out," and then we ended up talking to 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was like, that was incredible. Just to not be entertained by TV, not be playing video games, just straight up conversations. And yeah. I mean, that's why all the group chats that you have and all the, people that you talk to, I'm glad that you like this, but, coming down to see you, you don't really skip a beat because we spent so much time hanging out, working, and all that other jazz. And
yeah, and I was looking forward to this.
We embraced the suck together.
We did, and if you're from Clovis, New Mexico, I'm sorry.
And if you were part of that specific squadron, I feel bad for you because, man, what a terrible place it was.
I want to get. I do want to get back to what I was going to say, but I do want to say this. I know you're going to succeed, and I know what I want to do, which is a story for another day. That I'm going to succeed, and everybody who told me and maybe told you that it's not going to happen, and even at this stage in our life, we sit there and we're doing this. Not only we're doing this because it's fun, or getting some experience doing it. But you hope that you hit.
Yeah, and this is beginner.
Beginner. But when we are famous, we're gonna look, or when we get to where we want to be and we make it big, we're gonna look back and we go, man, do you remember that night? But I'm also gonna look back and every single person in that hellhole of a place that sat there and said, "You're shit." Look, I wasn't the greatest at what I did. I wasn't the greatest NCO, and I'm. That's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But when I tell you, hey, I ultimately make the decision, hey, I'm getting out, and you're gonna sit there and shit on my dreams and aspirations because I wasn't as great as a security forces member or defender as you.
I wasn't.
Why shit on me for that?
I wasn't in your eyes what I should have been. Essentially, what leadership wants him to be, I'm not exceeding to their standards, even though their standards aren't the standards that the Air Force sets.
Yeah, and so they're looking at me and they're like, oh, this guy's not that great. I had my issues, my timeliness. We all have our own issues. We're all not perfect people. But I'm making that decision to walk away. So why not just say, hey, dude, best of luck to you?
Right.
What's your plan? What are you going to do? Because I'm going to do this. All right, well, best of luck to you. Why sit there? Oh, you're never going to fucking succeed. You're going to be a hack, you piece of shit. And you're just like, bro, whatever. So when I do make it, and I'm doing what I love doing, same with you, don't at me. You know what I mean? Like, don't at me. But, that was my boy, dude. We drank a couple beers at one point. And, no, don't at me, bro.
That's Richard Sherman's attitude right now for this year for keep hating. Okay, I don't want you on my side. You were hating San Francisco from week 1. I want you to keep hating San Francisco. Continue to hate. And then when you do make it famous, and then people do go back and then remember this episode, they're going to say, wow, he talked about kids with cancer. Cancel culture, dude. That was like 15 years ago. We got to take him off the air.
Got to take him off the air. And so back to what I was originally getting at.
Yeah.
Following politics and everything like that. I try to read and watch and listen to pundits and experts from both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. As you should. And I'm a big fan of Bill Maher.
Mm-hmm. And Bill Maher actually brought up a valid point. I think he actually, in that episode, it's one of the most recent episodes over the past month or two ago, he brought up I'm pretty sure he aired a clip of President Obama about comments President Obama had made. And Bill Maher was talking about the cancel culture thing, and I agree with him 100%. And when President Obama ran and got elected in 2008, mm-hmm. He being a Christian, he had said he didn't believe in legalizing marriage between men and men and women. He didn't believe in making gay marriage legal.
Right.
And as kind of his time progressed a little bit, his opinions changed.
Right.
And he ended up getting it passed, and now it's legal in the country. Mm-hmm. So are we going to shun? Are we going to cancel Obama's speeches? Are we going to say he's a horrible person because he had a viewpoint at one point in his life, and then he kind of evolved, and opinions can change. Our opinions can change, and it changed.
A great example of that is Hillary Clinton, because you go back to her earlier interviews, she did not support gay marriage. Okay, and here's my support. I don't care. Go get married. Do whatever. I don't care.
Be miserable like the rest of us.
I'm not miserable. I'm miserable by myself. But
love my wife, but
but what I'm saying is there's a video interview out there that Hillary Clinton says so close to the lines, not a direct quote, but something along the lines of, I don't support gay marriage. And then as soon as it's more convenient for her to say that she does support gay marriage for more votes, she swings her opinion. Okay? And every politician does it. And sometimes with more facts and more knowledge. Joe Biden just had one, his first time coming out about marijuana. Oh, it's a gateway drug. As soon as he saw the online reaction, he had to immediately retract his statement and change it. And I know that's a little different, but what I'm saying is sometimes for votes, people put aside their personal preferences and say what they need to get the vote. And
which is in my eyes, if by doing that, by changing your stance just for votes or just to increase your popularity, I think that is scummy, and I think that does a disservice to the people actually trying to fight for something, right?
Right.
So let's say, another hypothetical, that Obama had his opinions on gay marriage, and then he turns around and he goes, well, man, I want to get reelected. I'm not going to vote for it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to pass it. I don't believe in it. Yeah, that's shitty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that you sit there and you're like, man, that dude, you could argue and say, well, bigot,
bigot,
homophobe, whatever the case may be. But I'm actually more willing to stand by him for sticking to his values.
Right.
Whether they're wrong or not, whatever your opinion is on it.
You're just basing your judgment of his character.
Yeah. You're saying, hey, he stood by what he believes in. Then him coming out and saying, you know what? I want to win this re-election, so let's just go ahead and pass it so I can get the vote. That's like I equate it to in the military. People that went out and volunteered. I mean, this is probably a stretch to compare gay marriage to volunteering, but the point I'm making is a lot of people volunteer because they want to help. In the military, people volunteer because they want to look good. They want to make themselves look good. They want to stand out and say, me, look at what I did.
There are the few that actually volunteer because it makes them feel good.
And they love it, and they go out and do it whenever they want.
Yes.
But the people that are grandstanding in a sense to say, look at me, I'm volunteering here.
I'm terrible at my regular job, so look how good I am.
Give me awards, make me blah blah blah. I'm a volunteer. That I don't like. So I don't like when politicians on both sides of the aisle do it, changing their opinion on a stance solely for votes alone, right? Yeah. But what I feel like in Obama's case is he actually genuinely said, you know what, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that this should be, and I was against it. When I was 18, 19.
Cancel culture.
Cancel culture. You're never going to have a podcast, bro. But I was against it. But my opinions changed. Why? Because I got older, and because I actually met people from different walks of life and got to know people, got to get different opinions. I was a bigoted, closed-minded individual when I left high school. And I joined the military.
Because the only thing that you knew was that small town.
I wasn't small town, but
yeah.
But in the sense of, if you want to use small town, at least small community within my family, right?
Yeah.
Having certain family members that had certain beliefs that I heard every day.
Yeah.
I had the views. I was regurgitating their views, right? And I didn't learn and make a point to develop my own opinion. So I went and developed my own opinion, and I agree with it. And we should be allowed to do that. You know what I mean? And so I watched during one of, I think it was the first Democratic presidential debate recently. Not recently, but since they've been doing them. A lot of the candidates attacked Joe Biden on his busing legislation back in the 70s, I think it was. But Biden supported busing for minority children, I think African Americans. And a lot of people at the time were like, this racist bigot, right? So it got brought back up that he believed in a discriminatory practice. They were using it against him on an attack at the debate stage. And then I watched the subsequent analysts talking about it. And then bringing in members of the Black Caucus and talking to African American analysts on television, political pundits and stuff, and said, does this hurt Joe Biden? And they're like, well, no, that happened X amount of years ago. He's changed, right? His views on those things have changed. And people stood by Biden, and a lot of people still stand by Biden. So why is it acceptable? Why can't we just either forgive it or don't forgive it? You know what I mean? This cherry picking what we want to be outraged about.
It's because the people who are representing like celebrities, and the people who are getting all these people they have 14 million viewers, they don't want to make these 14 million viewers mad. They want to keep their whatever up. So if these 14 million people are saying, no, you can't be this way, that person's probably going to be like, yeah, you're right. I don't like that person anymore. And they kind of, there's sometimes you have to throw away past relationships with individuals, and that's your choice. But there's sometimes when you can't just pick and choose because it benefits you greater. And if you want to ruin Joe Biden, you don't have to play anything. You don't have to play his politics. You just have to play like his quotes. Because I just heard one the other day, and he was talking about kids rubbing his leg hair. And I'm like, this guy, you want a guy who talks about his blonde leg hair in a pool and kids touching it. I don't want that guy.
That's weird.
That's really weird. All right, go look it up. Go Google search it. He said it, and I was like, that's weird. But we got into politics.
I will say this real quick.
Okay.
Another thing Bill Maher had brought up towards the end of it is this idea, especially within the cancel culture now and the wokeness, everybody being woke. This idea of like, oh, fuck the founding fathers because they were racist bigots that owned slaves. Okay, well, if you were a white man back in the 1700s, I guarantee, and you had wealth, more than likely you would have owned slaves too. So stop pretending that the past, you're better than the people from the past, because that was the times, right? And we've evolved from it. We've grown from it. We need to let people evolve and grow.
And I understand how shameful of a past it is, and I understand that people...
I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying...
people did benefit from it. The United States as a whole benefited from it. I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm just saying, unfortunately, at that era, it's hard for people to put themselves in shoes because everyone will go, oh, yeah, I totally would have never did that.
Yeah, bullshit.
But if you were born into a white Southern family who owned a plantation that had all the money in the area, you probably would have never known better because you don't have the education that we have now.
And it's just amazing. You look back and you see the evolution, right? How we evolved as a nation from that. We went from slavery to eventually slavery being repealed and outlawed. And then from there we went into the Jim Crow era. Well, over some time, the pretty big gaps in between. But then we had the horrible Jim Crow era, and everybody fought for equal rights. And then here we are today, you know? We had elected a black president.
But we're still going through major issues.
We are. And then, but it takes time. It's evolving. And
as
a country. And then we even look at marijuana for an example. It was so unacceptable at one point. Now we're evolving to a point where it's acceptable.
Took it off the Class A
and
list.
We got to let people evolve. We got to let the times evolve. And that's why we got to let people's opinions evolve. Right? And that's why we can't jump to this conclusion of canceling somebody because they share a different opinion than you, or they said something bigoted 20 years ago. We can reference Kevin Hart having to step down from the Oscars because of insensitive tweets that he had made X amount of years prior.
Even from Epic Mealtime, Harley, he made a great point that he dressed up as he did wear blackface, and he dressed up as Shaquille O'Neal, and he's a great guy. He's funny. Their channel's kind of dead, but
it was a great channel at one point.
Yeah, but he kind of made a great point that at that time in his life he didn't know that was racist, because it happens when people uncover photos from 1970. It's okay because it was the time. I'm not trying to get to that point, but some people honestly they didn't dress like that to oppress another person. They just wanted to go full out all on the costume. Somebody dressed as Jason Aldean dresses Lil Wayne maybe, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying people don't understand, and then when they finally do understand, then it's hard for them to make up for that because the internet's already counted them out. But what I'm saying is, at the time, if they truly and honestly did not know what they were doing was wrong and they've evolved into a different person, then we can't just judge them for one mistake. But if your original intent was to put down a group of people by dressing that specific way...
And then you haven't evolved from that? You've hidden it, but you haven't evolved from it?
Then, yeah, let's torture them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, let's throw all the hypotheticals out. All right, let's let's get back to politics and football. Today's Selection Sunday. Right now it's 2:17 Eastern. Top 4 teams. We're in that 4 football playoff system. I have, with my predictions for 1 through 4, I have Ohio State at number 1. Yeah, I should have started out at 4, but Ohio State I have at number 1. LSU I have at number 2. Clemson I have at number 3. And they're going to sneak Oklahoma in at number 4. Some reasons why I have it like this is because Georgia was never a serious contender for the college football playoffs. The college football playoff committee was praying that Alabama wouldn't lose again. They were hoping that Alabama would stay at one last team. And they knew, because LSU is playing phenomenal football, and they might be a number 1 seed tomorrow. I still think Ohio State's going to remain the number 1 seed. But LSU, they always knew LSU was going to beat Georgia. They stomped them. They played phenomenal football today. And so they were hoping that LSU would, because Alabama was ranked 5th until they lost that next game.
Against Auburn.
Yeah. And then they dropped to 12th. They were hoping that they would beat Auburn. They would stay at 5. Georgia would get beat. Boom, here you go again. You have Alabama sneaking into that 4th slot again. Now with Oklahoma coming back from that 28-3 deficit and then beating Baylor again today, I think they automatically get the 4 bid. You have Utah. They lost to Oregon. They're done. You're done. You don't have a chance. Georgia, 2-loss team. You're done. Other honorable mentions: Baylor. You had a good season, but you lost twice. So if Oklahoma beat you twice, you're not gonna outrank Oklahoma. But those are my honorable mentions who had a good year this year. But I still think Ohio State number 1, LSU number 2, Clemson number 3, and Oklahoma number 4. It's kind of straightforward. If Oklahoma's not in it, I don't understand the reasoning. If Georgia somehow stays in it, it's because they want 2 SEC schools, and I don't understand it.
I'm almost positive they're pretty butthurt that Alabama didn't beat. They're upset that Alabama lost to Auburn because they wanted 2 SEC teams.
Yeah, they wanted them to stay in 5th. They wanted Georgia to lose to LSU, and then they were gonna just bump Alabama right back in that 4 spot. So then they would vote LSU. We're back to hypotheticals. But if Auburn would have won, Auburn would have went. If Auburn would have lost, then Alabama would have went to that 4th seed. They would have played OSU because they don't want this LSU OSU matchup at 2 and 3. They want the potential for Alabama to play LSU in the national championship game.
Like they had Alabama and Georgia that year.
Yeah, so they would have OSU ranking off against Alabama, and then they would have LSU playing Clemson, and they're still going to get their hope for their potential Alabama versus either LSU or Alabama versus Clemson. And I'm not saying that a Big Ten school playing LSU or playing Clemson for the national championship won't be as exciting, but those college football the college football committee, they were just licking their chops waiting for an opportunity to Alabama so they could sneak them right back in there, and they lost, and I was so happy.
I agree with just about everything ranking wise. Realistically, I guess you could flip LSU and OSU.
Yeah. They're
just so close.
I mean, LSU's beaten 3 top ranked teams.
Yeah, they're like top. They've beaten the top 10 teams. 3 top 10 teams.
Yep. They beat number 4 Georgia. I don't really pay attention that much to LSU, but they've been having a good season.
They've had a great season. So you can realistically flip-flop OSU, LSU. Oklahoma, Clemson. I would put Oklahoma at 3 because they did play a tougher schedule than Clemson did. Even though Clemson's undefeated, they played in the weak ACC. Whereas Oklahoma beat, I keep saying okay because I wrote down okay, but Oklahoma beat a 7th-ranked Baylor, whereas Clemson beat a 23rd ranked Virginia.
Yeah.
You could also argue
bring out the hefty.
Oregon.
That's trash. Now Oregon, I think they're a top 10 ranked school.
They're.
I think they might have been 8th, 9th. Can't remember.
Utah was 5th.
Yes. No, but Oregon was still.
Oregon's a 1-loss team, right?
I
or
believe
2-loss.
I can't exactly give you the quote on that, but I know that I think they were either 8th or 9th. They might have been in the top 10.
Oh, they're 13. They were 13.
13. Wow, I was way off.
I think they were
Called myself out. But they played a phenomenal game, and I would argue.
Yeah, they were 2-loss teams. So
I would argue that Utah, if hypothetically Utah would have won.
Yeah, they should have. They would be number 4.
Number 4 for sure.
Actually,
or do you think Oklahoma would still sweep?
Oklahoma would still get in,
and then Utah would always complain that they didn't get in the 4 player, and that's the problem. The problem is 4 teams.
Yeah,
I would almost argue. I know you're adamant. I know 6 teams doesn't fix the problem entirely.
Nope. 8 doesn't even fix it.
But I think 6 teams would fix it temporarily.
I don't think it would,
because you're only adding one more game for the number 1 and 2 seeds.
I think you're just increasing the chances of
SEC schools.
Yeah,
but it just depends on their strength of schedule and not their win-loss record. And that's
the only SEC schools that don't get to benefit from the SEC bias are schools like Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
But Tennessee's been awful.
They have, but I'm saying, like, let's say next year they go undefeated, I can still potentially, and then they lose the SEC conference championship to it,
What I like about LSU is a lot of potential NFL quarterbacks and a lot of players that want to progress. They don't like playing in the SEC against Alabama because they're kind of a powerhouse. I know this year they're not, but I mean, out of the last 10 years, Alabama's been one of the best teams technically in the nation with their record. Even though I know they're playing scrub schools, but if you look if you're looking at wins and losses, there's a whole heck of a lot more wins than there are losses. And this transfer quarterback for LSU,
Burrows,
comes in and wants to play for LSU because he wants to set himself up on these big stages, and he's proven himself. So that's what makes LSU is a real contender, because they have a guy who's playing quarterback who's out there to prove it for himself and prove it for his team. So without getting more into college football, today's Sunday. Let's go over some quick picks. We'll go down the list and just tell me who you think's going to win, and you can give a quick reason why. San Francisco versus New Orleans.
This is a matchup that some people are touting that could be, a big playoff matchup. I've got New Orleans.
All right, New Orleans with the upset. Baltimore versus Buffalo.
You've got 2 running quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
One's a little more mobile than the other.
But you still can't deny with Buffalo, especially after Thanksgiving Day. I have Buffalo with the upset.
I'm going to go with the safe bet with Baltimore. I'm actually going to go with San Francisco because they've just been doing it this season. They did it against the Packers, and they're just going to keep doing it. New England versus Kansas City.
Kansas City.
I think New England's one of those teams that doesn't lose twice in a row. So New England's going to they get it done in the playoffs. Bill Belichick has a lot of film on Patrick Mahomes and the offense. So I think that the Patriots come out on top during that matchup. Seattle versus the Rams.
So it's an NFC West matchup.
It's super important, too.
It's super important. Rams are fighting for their life right now.
7-6?
7-5.
Yeah, they're
7-5. Yeah. Seattle's on a roll right now, but I'm gonna go. As much as it pains me to say this, I'm gonna go LA.
I'm gonna go Seattle. Russ is playing some fantastic football. He was just mic'd up during the last game. He's just like Drew Brees, huge motivator, says the right things at the right time. And he's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now who you want behind the ball to score a touchdown. Now, if you're looking to win a football game, it's still Tom Brady, because he sets you up on the Tom Brady special, which is we've got to win by a field goal, and I can get you there because I'm Tom Brady. But if you need to score a touchdown, Russ is one of the best quarterbacks to have at the end of the game. I'm going Seattle. Tennessee versus Oakland.
Tennessee.
I'm John Gruden. He's mad. He's angry. He looks like Chucky. I'm going Oakland. I think they get it done. I think Josh Jacobs has a good running game against Tennessee. I think Oakland gets it done. Cincinnati, Cleveland battle for Ohio.
I think Cincinnati is riding high off of their win against New York.
First win of the season.
And I am not a fan of Baker Mayfield, so I'm going to go Cincinnati. And this is purely a choice on bias. I'm choosing Cincinnati because I don't like Baker Mayfield.
Well, every time that I've bet against the Browns, I've lost this season. So I'm going to bet for Cleveland, but I'm going to hope that Cincinnati wins because, I mean, Cleveland, they're just a vanilla team for me. Okay? I don't care what really happens to them. Washington versus Green Bay, very biased, Packers. But looking at the record, Haskins is probably going to take twice as many selfies, so he doesn't have to play against Green Bay.
Is it at Lambeau?
I believe so.
So it's a historic field, so he's going to want that historic field selfie in the background.
He's got a selfie on the field. I'm playing quarterback at Lambeau.
I'm at Lambeau. Never thought that I would be here.
Oh, look, they're doing the Lambeau leap behind me. Yeah, I think Green Bay gets it done.
Green Bay wins, yeah.
Another NFC North matchup.
Detroit, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Was it last week? Detroit lost. They led it against the Bears. I'm going to go upset here, Detroit.
And Frank is an upset city today. I think that for Minnesota, that division for the wild card spot, and Minnesota has a strong chance of winning the division still against the Packers. Last week, Minnesota won. I didn't think they were going to. Detroit will Detroit when they're expected to Detroit. So I think that they're just going to fold over. If they get blown out by more than 3 touchdowns, I also have their head coach, Matt Patricia, getting fired. If the Lions lose by more than 3 touchdowns versus Minnesota, I think he's out. But I'm going to go Minnesota by a field goal. Miami versus New York Jets.
Miami.
I'm going to go the Jets because Miami won last week, and
I know.
They're going to forget how to practice. They're going to be like, yeah, we did it. 2 weeks in a row maybe. So let's take it easy. We won 2 games this year. 3. I don't know how many. Who cares? Tampa Bay versus Indiana.
So we are in the Tampa Bay area, and I guess we had this conversation the other day. I am a Philly sports fan through and through. As I talked about at the beginning, that I'll be going to USF, so I am now Bull. But, living in the Tampa Bay area, I should root for the Tampa Bay teams when my teams aren't playing them.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, the Bucs are a hot mess, so I'm going Colts.
I'll go Colts as well. I think that you pointed out they are a hot mess. Tampa Bay.
Jameis Winston is a turnover machine.
Yeah, if the only way that Jameis Winston could do better is if every time he threw a touchdown pass, he got 2 free crab legs. And every time he throws an interception,
I was trying to think of a joke.
They would take him back.
Oh, man.
Denver, Houston.
Yeah,
Denver's trash. Go recruit a quarterback. I don't care. You got a rookie. You haven't played him. He's been hurt. Yada, yada, yada. Chargers, Jacksonville.
Well, Minshew's back.
Yep.
Nick Foles is benched for the rest of the season.
Yep. Unless he gets hurt. But they're all on the Minshew train.
They're all on the Minshew train. With that being said, Chargers.
I think Phillip. I think he's deflated. I think he's already looking at
Did
greener.
Tom Brady cause that?
I think that he's frustrated. I think he's looking at greener pastures. I don't think he goes back to LA next year. That's why I'm taking the mustache Minshew. Pittsburgh, Arizona.
Who's the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh? It's not.
It's their third string. So
it's not Helmet.
It's not
Helmet boy.
Yeah, no. It's man, I should know this. This is terrible. But
I picked him up for 1 week in fantasy when Mason Rudolph was injured.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go Pitt.
All right. I'm going to go Arizona, and here's why. It's because the offensive coordinator for Arizona, as well as the organization, have been specifically looking at what Baltimore is doing with Lamar Jackson, and they're implementing more offenses to benefit. They're not trying to place their quarterback in an uncomfortable position. They're trying to take what their talent has, and they're trying to build talent and schemes around their quarterback. So I think they're gonna upset Pittsburgh. It's at Arizona, I believe. And then Carolina versus Atlanta. Last Sunday game.
I'm going to go the ATL.
Yeah, Atlanta. They've...
looking good lately.
Yeah, and Carolina, Kyle Allen, hot garbage. Is that Allen?
Yeah, it's Kyle Allen.
Yeah. The Bills had this fat guy, bare-chested at a game. Our Allen is better than yours. Thought it was hilarious. Poor Christian having a phenomenal season with no... because he has no quarterback, he's having a phenomenal season. But they'd be real contenders if they had someone actually back there that you could have faith in.
Yeah, and actually worry about playing on the field and doing well on the field and not what grandma outfit they're going to wear next, you know?
Yeah. Focus a little less on your fashion or what you call it, and focus more on your diet, how your body's recovering, and how you're performing on the field. And Monday Night Football, you're from the Philly area, and it is the return of Eli. I didn't think I was going to see Eli ever again in a Giants jersey. So you've got the return of Eli.
Chapter whatever of the book of Eli.
And playing your Philadelphia versus... And by the way, this is a must-win for Philly.
Yeah, Dallas is like, oh, you want the playoffs? Here you go. And the Eagles are like, no.
Right now, Philadelphia is playing hot potato with Dallas. You take it.
This game scares me, just like I had a feeling Miami was going to beat us last week, and they did.
I actually called it.
I know, I saw it on the podcast, and after the game I had saw it.
I was wrong. I was wrong about a couple of teams.
Yeah, but you were right about Cincinnati.
And about Cincinnati getting the first win.
And Miami.
But as a good friend said, if you didn't put money on it, it doesn't really count as a bet.
Okay. With that being said, though, I feel like it's another trap game. Giants last week were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Eli's coming back with something to prove.
For next year's team.
Yeah, hey, you benched me for a rookie, an unproven rookie.
I'm going back to San Diego.
It's time for me to light it up.
I've got Saquon now.
I've got Saquon back. On top of that, I mean, Giants have in recent years historically they have played Philly bad. I'm only going Philly solely for biased reasons. I want them to win. I need them to win. They're my team, my ride or die. I'm picking Philly, but I am putting an asterisk on that I would not be surprised if the Giants win.
So, return of Eli. You didn't ever think he'd get a second chance, but just like who is it? The book of Eli. That's the movie, right?
Yeah.
And then
Denzel Washington.
Wasn't there a sequel?
I don't know.
Denzel Washington never does sequels. Oh no, it was The Equalizer too. Never mind. I was gonna make a great reference, but it's not correct.
No, Denzel died in that movie, so there wouldn't be a sequel. Spoiler alert.
Whatever movie Denzel never does sequels, but there was one movie that he did do a sequel for. There is, I can't remember. But anyways, besides the point, return of Eli Manning. I think he's gonna tear up that terrible Philadelphia secondary. I think what's going to happen is they're going to rely on the run heavy because they don't want Eli losing the game for them. And then Philadelphia's going to get trapped in that run look, and bam, play action fake, boom, there's 20 yards. Here's another big pass. I mean, Eli, as much as he sucks, and his record is 100, and if I believe this is right, you can fact check me and call me wrong and hit me on Twitter at JTofJville.com. But what I'm saying is, I think he's 116 and 116. So he's got to get this win. He's got to be above 500. You can't finish medium. You can't finish evens. Okay, so he's 0-0. He's this is tired throwing it all out. He's got to finish with a positive record if he ever won. He's not. It's so sad that he's a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback and he's not even projected to make it into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's pretty bad.
Yeah, he's rode defenses. Michael Strahan broke the sack record that year.
He had a lucky catch off the helmet.
He had 2 lucky catches. One was off a helmet, and then the other one was the next Super Bowl to Mario Manningham. Michael Strahan that one year broke the sack record, and they had the best pass rushing defense in the nation. So if I would relate Eli to any quarterback, I would probably say Terry Bradshaw, because I know Terry Bradshaw won 4, but he had the Pittsburgh Steelers old school defense. He rode that, and he rode defenses in the championships.
And Donovan McNabb rode. Now, any Philly fan listening, I know you're going to come at me pretty hard about Donovan McNabb. I like Donovan McNabb. He is still arguably the best quarterback ever to grace a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. But he did ride Jim Johnson's defenses for a while.
Yeah.
With like Brian Dawkins and Lito Shepard, Sheldon Brown, those guys.
All right. So to finish up.
So who do you got? Philly Giant.
Oh, I got Eli.
You got Eli.
I got Eli.
All right.
All right. So to wrap this up, you said you wanted to start a podcast. So kind of give me the vibe, the feel, what you want to talk about, how you want people to feel. Tell me a little bit about just like kind of if you could just kind of tell me a little bit about it. You know, you're still in the works. I know you're still kind of
designing logos, messing around with intro music and software and everything like that, and then kind of setting up the game plan of how I'm going to start, where I'm going to go with it.
What topics do you want to cover?
So I originally wanted to be solely sports based.
Yeah,
right?
It's easy. We love sports.
We love sports. We talk about sports all the time. We follow it. We read it. We watch it. We're men.
We're smelling. We like sports.
You see this fucking beard.
Oh yeah.
Better than Ryan Fitzpatrick's, by the way. But it's not really a niche market, but it's a market that everybody's trying to tap into, sports wise. At my school, I was lucky enough to go to in my intro to mass communications class. I was lucky enough to go to CBS 10 News, the local CBS station, CBS affiliate out here. And got to go in, and I got to be a part of, I got to watch the 6 o'clock news right in the studio. Live broadcast. Then I got to talk to the reporters and the lead anchor. And the lead anchor's name is Ryan Bass. He is a UCF alumni, interned up at ESPN. Then eventually he was hired by CBS Sports, the national CBS Sports down in Miami, where he did a online fantasy football show. So he was able to go into the sports market and then he became the sports anchor for WTSP Channel 10 News. And then from there, they made him a lead anchor. And so when I was talking with him, he was discussing to me, I said, I want to be a sports journalist. So I'm majoring in journalism. I want to start in print. I like writing. And then from there, I wouldn't mind breaking out into television or radio. And said, but I said, hey, I want to do sports. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, I'm not going to, he didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way. I'm not going to shit on your dreams, but it ain't going to happen type thing, right? He didn't say it that way, but it was basically, you're trying to enter a really, really, really tough market.
Yeah.
It can be done, and if you work your ass off, more than likely you can get there if you work hard enough.
And right now in the podcast market, I've just got my toes in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very, very hard sports-wise. So with hearing that advice from him, and this is a guy who got to do some sports stuff, But another big thing he said to me that kind of stuck with me is you got to be different. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that from...
My face is so different, so I'm halfway there.
I've heard that from many different... I got to meet a bunch of other people in this mass comm class from all different types of career fields within the mass communications field, whole, whatever.
Right.
And a lot of them, same thing. You got to be different. And so I wanted to do a sports podcast where I took a little bit more of an academic approach, where I would do the prep work, go in and read case studies, academic journals, and then base my arguments off of some of the information that I had found. But then I kind of thought to myself, that might be slightly boring to some people. Nobody wants to hear, maybe some people do, but some people might not want to listen to a guy ramble on about something that he read in the University of Dayton Law Review.
Right.
You know? So you're going to go, okay, whatever, dude. Like, shut up.
Right. Which probably, like, when you play my podcast, most people get through 5 minutes or, like, next.
Yeah. Next. So I want to do sports, but I also want to bring in other topics too. I just want it to be kind of a chat thing, right? So cover sports, cover politics. I'm not much of a movie buff. I'm not much of a TV buff. I play video games recreationally every now and then, so I don't know much about video games. I could talk with you for hours about The Office, but other than that, I'm not really into I'm really only into sports and politics. But I want to try to bring in
two things that's very difficult to discuss at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
Exactly, and religion.
Yes.
But I don't know much about religion. So, I mean, after all, I just about almost failed my world religions class. But I want to...
Sports is a religion.
It is.
Yeah.
Praise be the name Carson Wentz.
Gross.
But I kind of want to talk sports, politics. Would try to bring different approaches to both, outside thinking rather than just hot takes. But I also want to bring in
this hot take. He wants to cover not hot takes as a hot take.
No hot takes. But I guess in a sense they're kind of hot takes. But I also want to talk about others, just random things that just come onto my mind, right? For example, not to go any longer than we already have, I had a conversation about with my wife about a workplace environment where you get in trouble for something and you watch me do that, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't get in trouble for it. And we heard it in the military. We've probably heard it at other jobs that we've had, of this idea of don't worry about what other people are doing.
Right.
And I'm just going to say this because it could probably lead into a longer conversation. And I went on a rant when I had this conversation with my wife. But ultimately, you should worry about what other people are doing. Not in the sense of like checking in on them. Not saying, well, did he go to bed on time? You know, did he get enough sleep? Why is he late today? Not that type of thing. But don't sit there and say that what I did, what you do personally isn't wrong, right? If you do something wrong, admit it, right? Admit your faults. But you have every right to say, you know what? Anybody who gets called out, regardless if you're right or wrong, you get pissed that you get called out. Mm-hmm. So you sit there and you go, you have every right to be outraged, to say, you know what? I got briefed for something, but this person didn't. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm pissed. Yes, I want to see accountability, right? Does that make what I did any...
Even across the board.
Even across the board. Does that make what I did any less important? Am I trying to deflect it away? Am I trying to say, look what he's doing. Let me push the blame all on him and maybe they'll stop briefing me. Yep. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to say is make that equal across the board. And so topics like that, you know, and just everyday things that we think about, listening to similar conversation, you know, similar points made by almost everybody. Like we had a discussion in the car today about, did your parents tell you to turn the light off in the car because it was illegal?
Yeah. Wow.
You know, those types of things, where having those types of conversations, things that just kind of occasionally go into the brain and you think, this must be a thing because everybody says it is. But no, take an outside approach. You know, look at things differently, and I just kind of want to do that with a general chat. I know I'm probably really all over the place.
Hey, we all
are. And I will try to make that more structured, a more structured approach when I start my podcast. But you get the general gist of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. You got any social media handles or anything like that at the current moment?
So I'm not active on Twitter. I do have a Twitter account that is _MERIKA 1776. So America 1776.
America.
On Twitter. My Instagram is the same. It might be spelled slightly different because someone probably already has it. Instagram, I haven't really posted much. I've posted a couple pictures that I've taken. I'm kind of in amateur photography, and then editing it on software on my computer. So it's the only thing. And then obviously Facebook, but I don't want people just randomly requesting me.
Yeah. If you get famous, we'll make a fan page.
Yeah.
But I don't, just because you listen to me one time, I don't need to know when it's your birthday, and I don't need to know that your grandma's cooking salmon this year for Christmas dinner when you wanted beef brisket. I don't care, okay? I don't want to add you.
You don't want to see me tagged in an event. Or you don't want... Yes, you care about me being marked safe during a natural disaster, but realistically, I met you once,
I know everybody can see
hope.
everything, but I try to keep my Facebook more private than every other social media platform. Add me on Twitter, add me on Insta. It's all for the Instagrams. It's all for the grams. Thick with 3 C's. But what I'm saying is Facebook's kind of more like that's how I keep up with I post memes and I keep up with people, you know. And I not that
Facebook's more personal, whereas Instagram and Twitter are more public.
Yep, exactly. But from the bottom of my heart, it's been a blessed time having you be the first guest in person. Team Cut was the first guest over the phone. We're going to be working on that technology to make it crisper.
And he did a good job.
I'm glad you listened. This is JT Show episode 7. I don't even think I said that. So number 7, it's going to take a while to upload. It'll be uploaded before I go to sleep tonight. But Frankie, thanks for being here. Thanks for serving with me.
The
You're a good
JT Show.
We're going to end on that note. Thanks for listening. Follow me on all that jazz, JTofJville, all those handles. If you made it this far, leave a comment. And when I make t-shirts, I'll be sure to send you one for free. So I'm going to give you a week from today. If you comment, let's say, if you leave a comment saying blue banana, when I come out with t-shirts, I will make sure that you get a t-shirt for free for the first 10 people. Because I'm not going to have the internet troll me and I owe 1,000 t-shirts. First 10 people to comment blue banana on YouTube. And if you don't have YouTube, the first 10 people total that either do it on Twitter or YouTube, I'm going to send you a free t-shirt when I make them. But other than that, JT Show episode 7, Frankie Gray Bars, thank you. Have a good one.